All right. About to watch this madness unfold. And I am gonna play some Tears of the Kingdom while it does, so put this link in in the description here. Just to cover myself. Where did my YouTube go? Oh shit, I have like fucking a million different things up. Okay, that's what I want. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's see what madness is about to unfold here. Hopefully, I think I have everything right. Okay. When the fuck was I playing XCOM? It's weird. Okay, even at this point, 3 monitors isn't enough. Let's get it going.
Heard yet? Terrance Howard recently went back on Joe Rogan's podcast, and this time
I
he
did
was
hear
joined
it.
by Eric Weinstein, who was brought on to discuss Terry's ideas. What resulted was 4 hours of comedy gold. So let's go through for some highlights, shall we? Now, Eric and his brother Brett are famous for being charlatans as well, so much so that they each deserve an episode unto themselves. But that will have to wait for another day. Here, I'm just going to highlight some idiotic things that Terry says and point out how Eric, for the most part, fails to explain precisely how idiotic they are in a way that the audience can understand. He does try to make it clear that most of what Terry says is wrong. It's simply that he remains unreasonably charitable because he places a higher premium on attracting credulous viewers to his own following than offering a firm voice of reason.
A lot of people
Joe
do that.
decided on Eric to fact-check Terry is just another in a long string of disappointments, so I suppose we should stop being surprised at this point. But it really is sad that he couldn't ask some well-spoken mathematics or chemistry graduate student instead of continuing to platform these types. Such is life. Let's get into the chaos.
Yeah, since Terrance Howard is like a big well, I guess somewhat of an actor. He turned down Iron Man 2. I don't know why, but whatever. I guess it was the money, but man, he went off the deep end. Let's see.
What out of the podcast that I did with Terrance really stood out with you, or something that you wanted to?
Well, what I thought is, I have to be honest. I've been listening. I was not so happy with certain things that happened in the podcast, and then I started hearing the response.
I don't know anything about this guy.
I was much more infuriated by the response than anything I heard in the podcast, because I thought that a lot of people just use their position of greater formal education in some of these areas to be jerks and to be really dismissive and pretend that they couldn't understand things that you were saying.
This will set the tone for the conversation.
What the fuck is he talking about?
By educated people correcting the insane gibberish
I thought this was going to be something
than the actual
even
insane gibberish that
more
Terry
different than this, but
tells
goddamn
you
it,
everything you need to know about who Eric is and his motivations for appearing on this program.
But they
He's
got
a charlatan.
upset that I'm talking about
bringing that word back.
Foundational problems associated with mathematics that's held us back.
But I think if people really care about these ideas, though, what they should do is talk about the ideas. It's the personal attacks that are attached to the ideas by people that want to be taken seriously. It fucks the whole thing up. Because, like, either you're correct or you're incorrect. Tell me what you think
and
is
you're a
right.
moron.
And, of course, all of these clowns pretend that the people who have been debunking Terry are just shouting insults and nothing else, instead of specifically explaining how all of his ideas are objectively wrong
1 times
using
1
language a
equals
child could
1.
understand. This is textbook denial, and it's the only
Oh my
proof they have.
god.
The well-deserved insults follow
Come
the
on,
debunking.
man.
They are not in place of it.
I want to offer to you. I want to be able to show you the things that I tried to show Neil deGrasse
I'm never going to be able to watch
that
Iron Man
he
again.
would not even really take a look at and to see.
But
if
no,
it's
he did take a
valid.
look at it, right? He responded in a long video recently.
Yeah, but his response was disingenuous.
No, his response was not disingenuous.
I haven't
it was
watched
the most
it.
genuine,
I've seen it, though.
flattering, and
Yeah.
diplomatic response imaginable to the flaming pile of crazy you threw at him. Again, denial, the only card he has.
I can
We will
imagine.
come back to Neil a bit later.
I don't think Neil actually understood some of your ideas, to be entirely
Hold on.
No,
Hold on.
and what he forgot.
We can't. Okay. We gotta watch Neil's first. Because if they're gonna be referencing that, then I'm gonna watch it. I mean, we're gonna watch this as well, but I meant to watch that anyway. And should it not automatically pop up? There it is. Because Neil is far more eloquent than most people. It's only a 17-minute video.
I recently learned I got name-checked by Terrance Howard on his recent appearance on Joe Rogan.
I reached out to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was like, hey, man, yeah, I'd love for you to come on my show, do my radio, do my TV thing. Would love that. I was like, yeah, but I've got something I want to introduce to you.
I got name-checked because 8 years ago, he sent me a 36-page treatise.
And it was only 36 pages.
Oh
So
my.
this is Terrance Howard attempting to reinvent mathematics and physics. A little
good.
backstory there. I took initial interest in Terrance because my mother said to me, do you know Terrance Howard? I said, yeah, I know. You mean the actor? She said, yeah. Well, I heard him interviewed on NPR. On there, he said that like when he was a kid, he wanted to be like a scientist and study the universe. I said, well, that's cool. Okay, maybe we'll get him on Star Talk. We love talking to celebrities who have a soft geek underbelly. At the time, I didn't quite know how to get in touch with him, but we met at something called the Upfronts, which is where networks present their next season's TV shows.
I saw him at an event up front.
And then this came in my inbox.
I hope I don't get
in this
fucking
particular
copyright
case, since I basically
checked on
solicited it
this.
from him, I actually spent time reading every line of all 36 pages.
I
And
feel
comment.
very sorry for
My
him.
comments are in red here. You see that? So I spent a lot of time on it. And I thought, out of respect for him, what I should do is give him my most informed critical analysis that I can. In my field, we call that a peer review. You come up with an idea, you present it either at a conference or you first write it up, and you send it to your colleagues. It is
They come
their
back,
duty
ask questions,
to
and you
alert
answer the question.
of things about your ideas that are either misguided or wrong,
Problematic.
or there's the calculation that doesn't work out, or the logic doesn't comport.
And that's a
That's
good
their
thing.
job.
Yeah.
Not all ideas will turn out to be correct. Most
of
won't
them,
be. But to get to that
most won't
point, you need to know things like, what has everyone else said about this same subject? Am I repeating someone else's work? Is this a new insight that no one else has had, but has foundations that are authentic or legitimate or objectively true? Am I making a false assumption? Am I making an assumption that someone else has already shown to be false? All of this goes on the frontier of science.
What?
Let me make it clear that I'm delighted when I see people with active minds trying to tackle the great unknowns.
It's whenever they don't want to
It's a
like
beautiful
be
thing
taught
that people want to
is an
participate
issue.
on this frontier. What can happen is, if you're a fan of a subject, let's say, a hobbyist, let's call it, it's possible to know enough about that subject to think you're right, but not enough about that subject to know that you're wrong. And so there's this sort of valley in there, a valley of false confidence. This has been studied
I've seen that
by
graph.
others, and it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yep.
It's the phenomenon where a little bit of knowledge, you over-assess how much of that subject you actually know. And then when you learn even more, you realize, no, I didn't know as much as I thought I did.
Yeah, peak of Mount Stupid. It's exactly right. Like, it's really why teenagers think that they know everything. Now, when I was a teenager, I did know everything, so that didn't apply to me, but this is effectively like rigorously studied by psychologists, and this is why that happens, right? Because you get in high school and you get maybe in calculus or something, and you think like you know everything about everything all the time everywhere in the world, and then you realize there is a breadth of math beyond calculus, and calculus is effectively like baby steps when everyone thinks it's the big boogeyman. And then once you get into that higher level math, your linear algebras, your differential equations, your graph theories, your topology and things like that, you realize, oh fuck, I don't really know anything. Shit. And people normally don't get that far. So, yep, Dunning-Kruger effect. And also there's a corollary there where it has been said and noticed that very smart people undersell themselves, while very maybe not so smart people oversell themselves. So that's pretty interesting.
So then there's a sort of a lull.
Looked
there.
up and studied a lot of
Even more,
Dunning-Kruger
you come
stuff.
back up. Ultimately, learning enough to know whether you were right or wrong. To become an expert means you spend all this time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You can't just sit in an armchair and say, I'm now an expert. It requires years and years of study, especially looking through journals where new ideas are published and contested. That's what we have learned is the most effective means of establishing
it's foundational
that
to
which is objectively
science
true,
as a whole,
or determining that which is objectively false. Both of those work hand in hand to move the needle on our understanding of the universe.
Sorry, I want to make sure that I'm not getting
just my opening line here. It's titled
getting
1 times
annihilated
1
here.
equals 2. So I lead off by saying, this is an ambitious work that is a clear indication of a restless, active mind. Within these pages, however, there are many assumptions and statements that are underinformed, misinformed,
That
or
is the
simply
best
false,
thing.
thereby compromising or not.
This is an ambitious work that is a clear indication of a restless, active mind. Within these pages are many assumptions and statements that are underinformed, misinformed, or false, simply compromising or nullifying meaning of the subsequent conclusions you have drawn. All my comments are in red, scattered throughout the document. That is a very pragmatic way of going about this. That is probably why Neil is where he is, but I think it's far too generous, personally.
Nullifying many of the subsequent conclusions you have drawn. That's exactly what should happen in a peer review, out of respect for one another's intellect. It opens with a quote from Terrance. It can never occur that the square root of a given number, when added to itself, is greater than the initial number squared, for that would expose a loose thread within the fabric of our understanding, a loose thread capable of unraveling the very ground rules of mathematics. That's a bold statement. So then I just say, this opening thesis is false. There are plenty of examples of this that have escaped your attention. His statement is shown to be false for every number that's less than 1 and greater than 0. For example, the square root of 0.64 is 0.8.
Number. It's
0.8
weird.
is bigger than 0.64. And it's a larger number than the original. And 0.64 squared equals 0.4096, a smaller number than the original. To the extent that the next 35 pages depends on your stated thesis. This fact
cuts him off
undermines your
right there.
claims and assumptions and conclusions. It's not about feelings here. It's about objective reality. So at the time, I considered Terrance a strong acquaintance. And we hung out a bit and had much exchange. We haven't spoken much since then. But go to page 2, and in here, he mentions people who he declares were persecuted because their vision exceeded the myopic view of their contemporaries. And he mentions Walter Russell, Nikola Tesla, John Keeley, and many, many more. Regarding
just
your
wrong.
list of people who have made brave sacrifices, I note that to be a genius is to be misunderstood, but to be misunderstood is not to be a genius.
Yeah.
The work of Walter Russell, has eluded any experimental support, and the work of
Yeah. That's, what is it? It's, every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square type of
Keeley
deal.
is generally not reproducible. Science is about reproducibility. I can have the most brilliant, crazy, fun idea ever, and if I perform an experiment and no one else can duplicate that experiment, it belongs in the trash heap.
Yep.
It's me in my own world, thinking I have landed on an objective truth, when in fact I haven't. That's how science works, the reproducibility of results. As for the work of Tesla, much of it had very real value to physics and our understanding of electromagnetism. And that value is duly recognized by my community.
Yeah.
In the naming of a unit of electromagnetism after him.
Tesla.
You can't get more badass than having a unit named after you. Newton has a unit named after him, for example.
You know what?
Metric unit of force.
You know what is
much of the rest
up
of
for
his
debate
work
is momentum.
was
Momentum
fringe
doesn't have a
and
unit named after
unrealized,
anyone. I wanna
either
call
for
it the
violating known laws of
I don't
physics
think anyone else
or
will,
for
though.
being simply impractical. Just because you do some good stuff doesn't mean everything you ever did is going to be great. I will further affirm that just because an idea sounds crazy doesn't make it wrong. The system of research and publications in peer-reviewed journals has the capacity to spot crazy but true ideas, provided they're supporting by compelling arguments, and ultimately supported by experiments and observations. Newton's laws, Einstein's relativity, quantum physics were all revolutionary ideas that appeared in peer-review settings or journals. Meanwhile, most of the work of Russell and Keeley had no such success.
That's like that Oppenheimer thing, right? Like in the movie where he like proves that you can't split the atom, and then they come in and they're like, yeah, we just did that. And he's like, oh shit,
Yes,
okay.
with their
he's
idea.
wrong. You gotta
So I think on Rogan,
admit
Terrance said that
how
I
you're wrong.
trashed those three researchers.
Attack that I had talked about Walter Russell and Victor Schauberger and
I
John
don't know who
Keeley
Victor Schauberger
and Tesla
is.
as the people that I looked up to. So he
Tesla.
threw shit on he was like, well, Tesla stuff worked, but Tesla was never really respected and out there.
When I'm just simply stating the fact, I don't think of that as trashing. I think of that as being honest. I mean, I could have softened it, but I don't think that's what people who care about you should do. People who care will be honest with you about ideas.
Yes, I agree.
Thoughts. The world is changing so quickly, and so is everything around us.
To a detriment.
Unfortunately, we have chosen to remain handcuffed to antiquated and obsolete beliefs. We have put an enormous amount of faith into the methods and practices of old that are as dead today as the men who propagated the notion.
You know what's funny? He probably sent this on email, you know, through a computer and everything like that. And the thing is, we have put an enormous amount of faith in method and practice of old that as the men who propagated the notion that the world was flat. Like, the thing is, we've known the world wasn't flat. We've known that for thousands of years. And it's like people don't understand that. They think it's like a new thing, but like after the Dark Ages and the Renaissance, like we found that out. No, we've known it for thousands and thousands of years. Eratosthenes, right? His well situation.
That the world was flat. So I say here, regarding your world was flat reference, it's not widely appreciated that the idea of a flat Earth predates the introduction and development of the methods and tools of science as we practice them today. Those processes date back to around 1600, coincident with the invention of the microscope and telescope. Before then, truth
I graduated on the 400th anniversary of the telescope being
afterwards,
invented.
and to this day,
1609.
truth was whatever the verified data obtained by your instruments forced you to believe if your senses otherwise contradicted the data. This fact means that there's no such misunderstanding on the scale of the flat Earth in the era of modern science. And in multiple places throughout the treatise, he's attaching a number to a physical idea or a physical object. That idea goes way back, by the way. Go back to Pythagoras, famous for the Pythagorean theorem, which we all learned in 8th grade, was it, or 9th grade? Yep. Pythagoras was also a philosopher who tried to understand how things worked.
I think most scientists are.
Among others in his group, that if you assign a number to something, the number can imbue that object with certain meaning and significance, which means then if you manipulate the numbers, that you gain insight into the objects themselves once you've assigned a number to it. There's a lot of that permeates this document, but it's a long disproven approach to the world. Again, there's nothing wrong with a failed idea. Now other people know to not do it.
And sometimes it does work,
if
right?
If we place a candle in front of a mirror, the measurement of light is doubled, is it not? It does not measure as only one light source. We actually see two lights.
You don't gain more light.
The light meter will show twice the intensity of light. This is false.
Yeah, that's false.
He
that
attacked
doesn't
it so
work.
with such vitriol.
Maybe that's too blunt.
Vitriol. Just say like you're wrong.
That's what I would tell a colleague. A colleague would then say, "Would thank you," and then we go out for beer after, because that's how that works. And there's an old saying. I first heard it from Michael Dell of Dell Technologies. If one day you find yourself the smartest person in the room, change rooms. I say this is false.
I've heard that
before. The light in the mirror appears dimmer than the source of light itself. For several reasons. Starting with the fact that no mirror is 100% reflective. But more importantly, the candle in the mirror is always farther away from you than the candle itself.
Right.
So the light meter will always read less than twice the actual value of the candle itself. I will note that from this work, Terrance produces art, sculptural art, which I find to be intriguing. Beautiful. To me, more intriguing than beautiful, because you got to look at it and you keep looking at it. Like, what is that?
He's definitely going down. Terrance Howard is going down this this Kepler route, where Kepler is like one of the most important figures in astronomy, right? Kepler's 3 laws tell us how orbits work and everything. I really go in depth whenever I teach his stuff. But he had some fucking wacko theories and shit. Like a lot of people did. Isaac Newton was still fucking around with alchemy whenever he figured out physics and calculus and everything, along with Leibniz, who I don't know as much about if he was doing weird shit with alchemy. But that's what it feels like is going to me. And I don't think, like, I think he's a moron, but again, I don't think the internet's like a real dividing force. It's a real, like, force for reaffirming what you think. Because if you get attacked, which most people will do, if you come up with some fucking weird ass theory and you get attacked on the internet, you're either going to do one of two things. You're going to go away, or you're going to stand even more firm in what you believe, even if that belief is wrong, because you don't want to be wrong. And I think that's what's happening here, which I've never really thought about until right now. But social media and all of that, like before the internet, you had to submit your ideas to other people and then back and forth. But now we have this social construct, social networking, that completely fundamentally changes the way that we interact with other people, because it brings us anonymity to a certain degree. So yeah, like everyone will just shit on everybody else and it won't really matter, and then that other person will again dig their feet into the ground and not move in many cases.
And what's going on there? I just want to read you my ending comments here. I could not follow the reasoning on these last few pages, but the illustrations that derive from them are beautiful, regardless of how they were derived. My notes have been strongly critical of your reasoning and conclusions. I was candid and blunt out of respect for the energy you have clearly invested in this work. But if you're sure that you are still right and that I have completely misunderstood your thesis, then you will need to look for another person to evaluate what you have done and solicit their comments. In any case, like I say above, the images and illustrations in your final pages are beautiful works of art, unlike any I have seen. Best to you, Neil. So, in case people wanted to know what actually went down 8 years ago, just always be cautious of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yep.
You put in a little bit of work and you have an idea, and then you think your idea is right, and that Einstein is wrong, and Newton is wrong, and that everybody's wrong, and that all of modern astrophysicists are wrong.
Yep, there it is. Like I was saying last night, I was going along YouTube finding stuff, and there are these YouTube science channels that are like, oh, we found something weird, you know, because we were looking at the JWST, James Webb Space Telescope, and they're like, oh, we thought that we would find these particular galaxies not as early as they appear to have formed, and we're going to have to go and throw all the physics away and go back and try and redo shit and everything. It's like, no. Science doesn't know everything, but like, our general idea of what is happening is correct. Now, you get more data, you get more precise data, you have to narrow your models, I guess, for lack of a better word, down and figure out what's happening. In fact, whenever you do find something really fucked up in science, especially physics, and you're like, wait, what the fuck is happening here? That's like a really, really good thing. Because you're probing into something that you thought you knew but you didn't, and now it's an opportunity to learn and enhance the knowledge of humankind.
That's bold. That's bold. Audacious. Bodacious. When continental drift was proposed, it was like, what? Land masses are moving on Earth's surface? That's a weird idea. That's going to be a hard...
Quantum mechanics.
We think there's sort of up...
Quantum mechanics makes no sense at all, except it's what actually happens.
That's crazy. It would take a few
it does make
decades
sense
until ultimately, when we're mapping the bottom of the ocean, we find that there's a mid-Atlantic ridge that the ridges are separating. Like, bada bing. So the resistance to jumping on the idea that continents move was not because people were stubborn. It was because people are cautious.
Yeah.
Any new idea needs to be put through the ringer. That's how science works. You put it through the ringer. Every possible test you can. Not just because it happens to look like South America fits with Africa. Any better evidence than that? Oh, wait a minute.
That is
fossils matched between the west coast of South America
that is a point
and the
of
east
evidence.
coast of Africa. Not recent fossils, fossils from millions of years ago.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Things that make you go, That
you get a point on a graph. 2 points make a line. 3 points make a trend.
And you reach a point where enough evidence is brought to bear on the question, and then you have a new emergent truth. But at the vibrant energy that goes on at conferences and the contest of ideas, that's how we roll. That's how it works. When Einstein came out with relativity, saying space-time curves, Al, what are you saying? What are you doing? Well, you can test it with a total solar eclipse. So the idea comes out in 1915, is published in 1916, 1919. We measured light around the edge of a during a total solar eclipse, because you can't see the stars during the daytime. You see the light rays bent from their actual coordinate positions on the sky. Sir Arthur Eddington, an astrophysicist, provided the first experimental evidence for Einstein's general theory of relativity, which, by the way, was published in a peer-reviewed journal. Crazy idea. The platform to be accepted for the ideas is not social media. It is not Joe Rogan.
Yes.
It is not my podcast.
That is.
It is
that is the danger of the internet. Is because those journals are not going to get the viewership that Star Talk does, or Joe Rogan does, or whoever. That is the real fucking danger. It's like those people that go to WebMD and type in like 3 symptoms and it tells them that they have cancer or something, and like that's what they believe from then on out because they did it themselves. and they think that they know more than doctors and professionals and stuff that have been doing this forever. I'm not saying every professional and doctor knows what the fuck they're doing, because they do. Many of them get like a large head and they're very stubborn in their ways, but like, you should trust experts because they've been doing it a long time. And that's why, like, if you say, oh, they're stupid or whatever, then you go get a second opinion. But some people will go to WebMD and they think that they know far more than anyone, you know, in their field or in that field. 100%.
Research journals where attention can be given on a level that at the end of the day offers no higher respect for your energy and intellect than by declaring that what's in it is either right or wrong or worthy of publication or not. I wanted to post this to my website so you can see my comments mixed in with his treatise, but you got a sense of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Neil deGrasse Tyson here.
Okay, so I thought he was gonna go and like pick like specific things out there, but he I actually really enjoyed this, not for the fact that he didn't get into the weeds, but like how the scientific community works and like the downfalling of social media and science. It's actually fucking terrifying, and it really bothers me because I know people like that they so fervently feel that something's right, and it's just simply not. And yeah, anyway, well, we're gonna go back to this. That was a good video though.
Is when I say 1 × 1 = 2, that's a metaphor for challenging the status quo.
Oh, it was.
How is the math equation a metaphor? What the fuck is he talking about?
Was just a metaphor, you guys.
What does that mean?
After having thousands of people mock him everywhere he goes for not understanding second-grade arithmetic, he's decided that he wasn't serious at all.
Sure.
He was just speaking metaphorically. But really, though, it seemed like the centerpiece of all his bullshit.
It did.
Despite the fact that the square root of 2 has all of its issues when you cube it or you multiply it by 2, which creates a contradiction. Despite the fact that the square root of 2 has a problem with the prime numbers, the fact that they call number 2 a prime number.
Yeah.
When
it's only divisible by 1 in itself. It's literally a prime number. That's the definition of prime numbers.
And it's clearly a composite number.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
And of course, he immediately explains that it wasn't a metaphor at all. He just can't do basic math. No, Terry, 2 is a prime number because it's a number that is only divisible by 1 and itself. How would it be a composite number? What are its factors? 1 and itself? Yeah, that's the definition of a prime number. Off to a bad start.
2, it does belong as a prime, but it is also special. And in other words, I have the opportunity to strawman you if I want to, because what you just said sounded crazy.
What Terry said was objectively crazy, and Eric should be telling him that he's clueless. There is no straw man. Terry is pretending that 2 isn't a...
What are they... What does he think a composite number is? Just a number that's made up of 2 numbers? Is a positive integer that can be formed by multiplying 2 smaller positive integers. 2 doesn't fit that bill, right? Yeah, because it has to be smaller. That's like the definition of it. He's just trying to change the definition, like the fundamental like axiom of what he's trying to get across.
A prime number, and it objectively is. Eric at the very least confirms that 2 is a prime number. There's nothing special about it other than that it is a very small positive integer. It's not large enough to have factors other than 1 and itself. Same with 3. Only once we get to 4 do we have a number that's large.
Actually, 2 in and of itself is kind of special because it's the only even prime number, but
large enough to have a factor other than 1 in itself. It's not that hard to understand.
You know, if you say 1,
yeah, I played Number Muncher.
2,
I love the Prime Number Muncher game.
But what you actually may mean,
I loved prime numbers.
The fact that you don't use certain terms, or the fact that you use certain pronunciations that communicate to me something very positive, which is that you taught yourself. You learned the stuff from reading about it because nobody taught you, or you wouldn't pronounce certain words the way you pronounce them.
Eric is saying that 1 times 1 equals 2 is crazy. He is saying that Terry can't even pronounce the words he uses. So why are we having such a hard time admitting the bottom line here, that Terry is crazy and has no clue what he's talking about?
Marie von Franz.
Well, he can pronounce the words, he just doesn't know what they mean.
Problems associated with the identity principle. You got Kurt Gödel, who talked about it. You got Wells.
Girdle.
All of them said it made everything incommensurable, just because they gave that identity principle to the number 1. And that has been the...
It has... Wait, what the fuck? Hold on. This is gonna fucking blow my mind.
Identity principle. You got Kurt Gödel, who talked about it. You got Wells. All of them said it made everything incommensurable, just because they gave that identity principle to the number 1. And that has been the stumbling block for mathematicians.
Incommensurable? Is that even a word? Incommensurable? Not able to be judged by the same standard as something, having no common standard of measurement. And he's saying that since we gave 1, like, unity as a common standard, then, like, we fucked everything up. I guess that's what he's trying to say. PewDiePie uploaded a new family member. I ain't watching 22 minutes of this.
Such a nice day.
I'll watch that later.
Because it's what's held everybody behind, because they keep trying to make that work.
What does he mean? Yeah, we have computers. We have...
I mean, in other words, I can take... We can do one of two things.
Is anything that he's saying correct?
No. No.
Terrance...
Just say no.
Several influences.
No,
again,
stop.
I don't think it's clear.
Stop your fucking politician bullshit.
Why Eric does not belong here. I will give Joe credit for asking point blank whether anything Terry says is correct. He genuinely wants to know. The answer is no. He has no clue what he's talking about and just spews word salad that doesn't mean anything. Terry has no clue what Gödel did or any other mathematician or what any principle means. The person in Eric's position is supposed to say no. Nothing he says is correct. End of story. But he doesn't do that. He feigns charitability to gain fans.
I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with multiplication either.
Well, then 1 times 1 is what?
1 times 1 should equal 2. And action times an action. If you can show me one place in the universe.
But you just shifted
frames. No. Show me one place in the universe. One natural observable phenomenon where 1 times 1 equals 1, where an action times an action doesn't have a reaction.
So then you just went into some... There's a concept called logomachy, which is arguing over words.
This is about as good as it gets here. Eric is pushing back on 1 times 1 equals 2, and he is accurately asserting that Terry is playing word games. But Terry needs to be aggressively shown how he is wrong, and it needs to happen in a way that
times doesn't, like, what are you saying? Oh, you have an action, and then you have another action. That's 2 actions. That would still be like a plus deal, not a times deal. 1 plus 1 equals 2, I guess, if you want to think about it that way. But even then, I don't agree with him, like, designating actions as, like, numbers in that way. Numbers are numbers. Numbers are not actions. You can have a number of actions.
Everyone listening can easily follow. 1 times 1 means 1 group of 1.
Yeah. You have 1 times
2 coins per bowl equals 6 coins. 2 bowls times 2 coins per bowl equals 4.
Like, you can think of it. You have 2 bowls times 2 quarters in a bowl. Like, you have 2 of these twice. Therefore, you have 4.
4 coins. 2 bowls times 1 coin per bowl equals 2 coins.
Correct.
1 bowl times 1 coin per bowl equals 1 coin.
Can't believe we're doing this.
That's
this
what
is so
1
funny.
times 1 means. 1 group of 1. Therefore, 1.
Oh, look, he put
Terry
unit
already
measurements on it
pretended
and
he had been
everything.
Speaking metaphorically, but now he's going back to defending his inability to do basic arithmetic. It's beyond pathetic, and he should be publicly humiliated for insisting on this idiocy over.
I disagree with that. I completely disagree with that assertion that he should be publicly humiliated. I mean, because again, it's just going to create more radical people. Himself, the people that believe in him, people that want to go against the establishment of science, whatever the fuck that is. I have no idea. But that's where the social media of it all comes into play.
Over and over again. Eric gives a lengthy monologue about how one such arithmetic contradiction would ruin all of math, but he doesn't assert that this is how we know Terry is wrong. Terry has no ability to even make a coherent comment.
Some forklift guy hits some strut and the entire warehouse goes. That's what you're dealing with the principle of explosion.
And that's that's the problem with the identity principle that they've been trying to work on for years. For years, it's Norman J. Wildberger.
Why is he talking about an identity principle? That 1 equals 1? The logic of identity states that each thing is identical with itself. What the fuck? Yes, that's exactly what I said. One can't equal 2. 1 can't equal anything other than itself, because then everything would be everything that it couldn't be other than the thing that it actually is.
Talks about it. It is what's because you have to cancel conservation of energy, and you have to cancel the action.
What the fuck? Oh my god. I'm not going to make it through this. You have to cancel the conservation of energy? Then you fuck up the laws of thermodynamics and entropy. Like, energy is a finite thing. Like, this kind of shit reminds me of playing Street Fighter, where, like, you have a pro player and then you have a noob, and the noob, like, does one thing. Maybe not a pro player, but a high level player, and the noob does like one thing that's super spammy, and it's like, what the fuck? I don't even know how to deal with this kind of thing. That's what I'm feeling right now.
And reactionary laws.
This is a pattern. Terry knows he has no clue what he's talking about. So what does he do? He drops a name. Yeah. Norman J. Wildberger. Who is that? What does he say? What did he do? No attempt to elaborate. It's just a name drop to pretend he's part of a grander discourse. He isn't. Then, of course, he deflects to concepts in physics like conservation of energy, which are not relevant whatsoever to the pure.
Yeah, and what he said
is this is all he can do to deflect from his terrible math.
$1 times $1. That was a problem.
That's the Dewey Decimal System. That's the problem with the problem comes up with the Dewey Decimal System. Why $1 times $1 can be different values.
What the fuck is he talking about? The Dewey Decimal System? The shit that we organize libraries with? I think my brain is going to leak out of my ears.
Values based on different currencies. That was the point.
What is that? What does that have to do with currency?
The decimal system is
Terrance makes a correct point that we say 1 times 1 equals 1, but if you say $1 times $1 is not a sensible thing unless $1 squared is a unit that you can interpret.
The Dewey Decimal System, everybody. The method of classification used at the library. Terry is trying to discuss decimal points in arithmetic, and he calls it the Dewey Decimal System. What more evidence do you need that Terry just repeats random terminology he's heard with no clue what it means?
Yep.
Why is nobody
Maybe he's an
mocking him
alien.
for saying Dewey Decimal System? Eric skips right over that and correctly explains that $1 times $1 would be $1 squared, which is meaningless. So when Terry tries to use that as an example, he sounds like an idiot. But we never get the payoff, which should be Terry admitting that he doesn't understand basic math. Now on to the flower of life.
You know, people always say as above,
God.
so below. But what if you said as below, so above, and you imagine that there was a three-dimensional structure?
As above, so below is the writing written on the gates of hell in Dante's Inferno. What the fuck are we talking about? This shit is giving me
Floating
whiplash.
above this that actually projects down to this and distorts down to this. So that's the first idea. First idea is it's not this, it's the thing that projected to this. And that's what you mean when you
What
say
are you
opening the
talking
flower.
about?
This is one reasonable steel man that Eric provides, since opening up the flower of life doesn't mean anything. But what Eric said does mean something. The idea that this shape could be something sort of like a two-dimensional shadow of a three-dimensional object or set of objects. Let's see if Terry is smart enough to accept this much better articulation of his insanity.
Because the flower of, when I was researching where the Platonic solids came from, this is the oldest version that I got from all of antiquity. It came back to them.
Well, there are no platonic solids because you're in dimension 2, except for what you built, which is the thing above in black.
And, of course, he fumbles it immediately, dragging us all back to his platonic solids, which Eric points out are certainly not present in this image, since those are three-dimensional
Is he saying like
objects.
they project
But what they
down
did years ago, 6,000 years ago, was
make
draw
that pattern?
straight lines where the circles overlapped. And I thought, in what I was reasoning with regard to all energy being expressed in motion, all motion being expressed in waves, all waves being curved, and that there were no straight lines in the
all waves being curved? What the fuck is he talking about? Longitudinal waves are not curved. They're actually perpendicular to the direction of motion. Dude, I'm trying to get through this.
universe. So I was like,
there's several errors in what you just said.
Terry begins to malfunction when he isn't allowed to spew his well-rehearsed script. It's right back to his word salad about energy and motion and waves. Eric doesn't like it, though.
If I stop there, we'll get off track again.
Yeah, but you should correct those errors while we're there.
Okay.
Yes.
It is not true that all energy is expressed in motion.
what
Right, you have
energy is
potential
not expressed
energy.
in motion?
Potential energy
There it
is
is.
not expressed in motion.
It's
If I
these
have a weight on
telling
a
that.
spring, which is sort of the quintessential, people don't know this, but most of physics comes out of the system represented by a weight on a spring.
It's oscillating.
Potential energy, the energy of position, not motion. I wonder, has anyone else brought that up? Whatever he could mean by that, he's wrong. For example, potential energy is the energy held by an object by virtue of its position in a field, like a gravitational or electromagnetic field. No motion, yet energy. Eric elaborates
It's
somewhat
stored energy.
excessively, and then Terry desperately tries to come off like he has any ability to discuss basic physics.
Because all of the energy is in the potential of the spring.
It's in the stress of the crystallization that has occurred within that system.
And then you will say something like,
The moment but that energy is still being held together. There is still energy there.
Yeah,
and it's
but it's
still
not-
moving at a microscopic level. It's still spinning central.
I mean,
He just says the word crystallization for no reason, and then tries to bring up other forms of kinetic energy that don't have anything to do with what Eric is talking about.
Yeah.
If you compress a spring, it has potential energy, and it is not moving.
Yep.
That's the point. Eric should have just said that repeatedly if necessary. By talking at great length about esoteric concepts and terminology, it's too easy for the viewer to get lost and for Terry to then find places to hide within the
technobabble,
jargon to
right?
pretend he knows what he's talking about. Compressed spring, no motion, potential energy, the end. Terry is wrong, and as happens repeatedly in this conversation, there is no resolution. Someone changes the subject 3 times in 10 seconds, and we are off to something else.
These two photons that were entangled, and it looks like a yin and a yang. Have you seen this?
People always want to talk about faster than light communications by taking an entangled pair and saying that if I do something in one place, I know what happens outside of my light cone. So we can give meaning to these things, and then you have to say, well, it doesn't allow you to create information transfer faster than the speed of light. You have to be very careful and precise about it. But if you just start getting jiggy, then you start thinking...
The reason of that is that you don't know the initial state, and then you change the initial state. So if you had like an upstate and a downstate or something like that, you don't know initially what state that thing is in. So like, if you had a bunch of entangled particles and you're like, okay, A is the upstate, and like imagine you have them in a line or something, I don't know, but anyway, you're like, okay, A is this upstate, and if it's a downstate, it's like B or something. You don't know initially if it is A or B or whatever. I don't know.
You introduce the ether.
Thanks, sir.
So he's going to the ether. Okay.
This is most of the episode. Joe brings up something totally random. Eric kind of explains some aspect of it in a way that absolutely nobody listening will understand. Terry
the
just
ether
says
was
ether
disproven.
for absolutely no reason, and then Eric doesn't make...
Ether was thought to be like the medium in which waves traveled, and Michelson-Morley did an experiment that effectively they split a laser, and if they were going in the motion of the, or against the motion of one of the split lasers, it should be like offset a little bit, and they proved that it wasn't. There's no ether. Both lasers made contact at the same time, regardless of what motion they were in.
Make fun of Terry for pretending he's not completely clueless. It's a circus sideshow.
And if you call that the ether, that's more or less what we work with. And then we do this weird thing where we say, well, they used to think the ether existed and it didn't. Ha ha ha.
Correct.
And that's not really...
No, because that's when they said that space was a vacuum, and they realized that space is
vacuum
not
ain't a vacuum.
It's not a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's not a vacuum.
Do you know how much is going on in that vacuum? It's all going on.
Yes, that all of this stuff.
I
and
understand.
So
this is the thing, which is if you step on this thing the wrong way, everybody laughs and says, ha ha ha, he doesn't understand the Michelson-Morley experiment. He doesn't understand why there's no ether.
Guy knows his stuff a little bit.
And then we secretly sneak it back in.
Yes, we should say, ha ha ha, Terry doesn't understand the Michelson-Morley experiment. He doesn't understand that the ether has been disproven. Eric talks about what's going on in the vacuum of space, presumably referencing the zero-point energy and quantum fluctuation, which has nothing to do with the obsolete concept of the luminiferous ether, and again pretends that it somehow pertains to Terry's inability to discuss science from 150 years ago. It's an immense disservice.
Was it really that long?
In analogy to off-axis digital holography, where we coincidence imaging of the superposition of an unknown state with a reference state is used to perform quantum state tomography. What the fuck?
See, but that's because of the uncertainty and Schrodinger, all of that. But if you were able, because they started off trying to predict an electron cloud, and find a little particle inside of it and couldn't predict it, so all these uncertainties and probabilities came out, but they were doing things on a two-dimensional basis. That's what I believe that I've figured out with the wave conjugations, because they talk about
what is he talking about?
Of hyperbolic space to where you don't.
I've lost the plot.
Trying to predict an electron cloud, and find a little particle inside of it and couldn't predict it. So all these uncertainties and probabilities came out, but
came out? No, they're collapsed down. I don't understand the terminology of came out.
They were doing things on a two-dimensional basis. That's what
I don't know what the fuck that means.
I believe that I've figured out with the wave conjugations, because they...
What the fuck are wave conjugations? Is he talking about, oh fuck, I can't think of the name right now. Fuck, why can't I think of that? Complex conjugate. Sorry, I got it before. Is that what he's doing? Like wave conjugation? Meaning? Nonlinear coupling between an incident acoustic wave and an oscillating source of energy. I've actually never heard of that term before. A nonlinear coupling between an incident acoustic wave and an oscillating source of energy. So it's like in resonance or something. I fucking guarantee, like, I made an A in graduate quantum. I fucking guarantee you he has no idea what he's talking about. Because I don't know what he's talking about. Phase conjugation. So you have something here, it's going to collide there. You have two, what is it, particles, I guess. So they're going to interfere and go off in another direction. Is that what they're getting at? I'd have to sit down and look at it. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
They talk about they show the pieces of hyperbolic space to where you don't have to go through all these unnecessary steps to reach it.
I am just so happy that someone's doing something like this. I'm so happy that we can talk about it. I don't think most people have any understanding of what's going on.
And it hasn't changed.
Of this kind of science.
There is only one way to contextualize all of this. People like to understand things.
Correct.
People also hate learning things.
Correct.
What you get is a bunch of people who want to understand the frontier of theoretical physics without ever having learned any physics whatsoever. So they listen to Joe Rogan read a section of an abstract.
You see it all the time in college.
Then they listen to Terry pretend to not only understand it, but to have actually innovated new physics that supersedes it, and then everybody pats themselves on the back for pretending to be interested in science. Joe is a shaman
100%.
who conjures up an undeserved sense of intellectuality for the lazy common man, and frauds like Terry take advantage of it to gain a cult following. All you have to do is memorize a bunch of words and use them randomly. From his first sentence, he says uncertainty and then Schrodinger, when he's clearly pretending to know what the Heisenberg uncertainty
Schrodinger's the wave equation.
and who formulated it. He has no idea what any physicist has ever done. He has no clue what any of these principles say. He's just in love with reciting words that sound complicated to him.
100%.
And someone like Eric has no business acting like a scholar when he doesn't shine a light on exactly what's going on here. If he can't get Terry to admit that 1 × 1 = 1, what is the point of going through all of this esoterica?
It's weird to think that this little studio, in a weird way, is one of the rivals of universities when we don't know what's going on at Harvard.
What the fuck? They publish shit.
We don't kick out plagiarists. We don't check what's going on at the National Institute of Health. And so it's very strange that...
Yes, we do. What is he talking about? Do they think like people at Harvard and every college is just running around screaming naked? Like what are they talking about? It's easily just... I can't even fucking speak my mind. It's so fucked up right now. Like, everyone publishes shit. You absolutely know what people are doing at all times. It's not that hard. They're not under, like, some kind of secret government contract, NDA. God. Okay.
But this table is one of the last things that is trusted by many people. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, which is people have a chance to see people in conversation about things. And, you know, you screw up, but the conversation's recorded and we all go on and people have a chance to see what's coming out.
Yes, it is absolutely insane that people put more stock in what one delusional actor says than all of the mathematicians and scientists all over the world. That's where we are at as a society. It is complete epistemological breakdown. People would rather pretend that basic arithmetic is wrong than admit that they blindly follow charlatans. And shame on Eric for feeding into this cycle to amass his own following.
All of these things I went up to Oxford 8 years ago and tried to present them there
Tried.
to be examined.
There it is.
They didn't want to take me seriously.
Because you keep coming at it
Because
in
the
the way
one
that you're
times
doing.
one, when I said the one times one, but like I said, that was a metaphor to say
Terrance, nobody hears it that
something's
way.
wrong. Something's wrong, but they know something's wrong with the math. It's not
Well,
adding
so-
up.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Right.
We have computers, we have bridges, we have literally everything. We have
Math that's
satellites.
And on the other hand, we have a way of working with math that's wrong, even though we know it's wrong.
Again, Terry uses this ridiculous metaphor excuse to pretend he isn't stupid. But there's nothing wrong with the math. He just doesn't want to learn math. But people are so obsessed with the idea that math could be wrong that they just believe him when he says math is wrong. Instead of showing Terry how wrong he is, Eric rhetorically corroborates this dumb lie, and Joe buys into it hook, line, and sinker.
So in this,
Is there
It's
a
actually
potential
terrifying.
future where human beings, through whatever means, develop a superior method of mathematics that doesn't have a problem with the number 2, that doesn't have all these
There
issues
is no
that
problem
we're
with the number
talking
2.
about?
What are they
That's
talking
what
about?
I think I've done with my wave conjugations. It solves all of those problems. That's what I was.
What
I
is
can't
what
wait
is
to
he
talk
talking about?
I
Wave
can barely
conjugation.
summon the words to express how maddening this is. Joe just
Thank you.
reasserts this idiotic script that there's something wrong with the number 2 just because Terry needs this problem to exist to pretend that 1 times 1 equals 2, which he continues to double down on even after pretending he was speaking metaphorically. There are so many millions of people
There's
all
no,
over
like,
the world
rigorous
who crap
proof
all over
for
this
that,
idiotic
too, that he's
fantasy,
providing.
but the only guy there is Eric, who needs to placate this delusion. So let's hear Terry pretend that wave conjugations mean something.
what Terrance is going to start talking
Thank
about
you.
as wave conjugations. And he has different ways that spheres run into each other. Then he says something very cryptic where he says, if you drop a
pebble.
in the center of a spherical lake, circularly symmetric
Okay.
lake, the wave will radiate out
Right.
until it hits the wall,
Correct.
the shore, and then it will radiate back. And so he's talking about
Sure.
this, and he says wave conjugations, and wave conjugation didn't call up anything directly when I heard him say it.
They would call it a phase conjugation.
Well,
but-
or they would talk about, the
Like,
conjugate
what
wave
the
coming
fuck is he
back.
talking about, man?
know,
I'm like
if you
more
do
than
something,
qualified to follow this, but
Like a garden hose that's affixed
I
to
don't
the
even know
wall,
what the
wall,
fuck they're
it will
talking
hit the
about.
wall and come back. Or something. So it,
yeah,
Terrance
it's
is
principle of
talking about
reflection. What about
is
it?
the idea, and you could do this where we could drop, like, let's say 6 stones in precise places in water, and then, using super slow-mo, watch what happens as these waves in precisely placed places run into each other. Because really what physics is waves in collision.
Is he thinking of, instead of conjugation, superposition? Because I think that's what he's talking about. Because when superposition of waves, you add the waves together, and if it's in resonance, they'll get really big. We have wave pools that do that. They're amazing. You can make like any kind of image on it. I think he's talking about superposition of waves, though, not conjugation. That's a completely different thing.
And they're going to create a particular cymatics, which is going to show the harmonic points where...
The important part is where Eric basically says that wave conjugations doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
Terry says phase conjugation because he recently had a Google party and found a tangentially related term that he wants to pretend is what he means. Then Eric describes something that has nothing to do with Terry's pretty shapes, so Terry acts like he knows what's happening and piles some more crazy on top.
And that cube will have an octahedral cavity that looks like this. That's how I think you generated this.
I actually generated this by putting 8 of the pieces together. I took 8 of those triangular pieces together, and I put them together. They basically became the basis of 2 tetraeds.
Yeah.
Which this would be seen as a neutron. And the interesting thing about this piece right here is nature always makes things in pairs, and they're always balanced. This doesn't exist. This exists only as a result of a pressure condition, a higher pressure condition.
Just more Terry Brand
Yeah,
word salad.
yep.
This is a neutron? How is that a neutron? Does he even know what a neutron is? Why doesn't Eric ask him what the hell he means when he says that's a neutron? Higher pressure condition? Pressure of what? He has no idea what pressure means. He's saying absolutely nothing, and nobody is doing anything about it.
I gotta give credit to Dave for this, because
you have a desire
I'd
to
lose
go
my goddamn
immediately
mind
towards what this means, right? And before you get to what it means, people don't even know what it is.
True.
Right?
Eric knows that retaining a shred of credibility requires some modicum of pushback, and that's what this is. But it's just not enough. He has no interest in teaching Terry anything. He just wants to piggyback on his crazy to leech off of this cult-generating momentum.
Yeah.
Neil can't figure out, well, where did this come from? So what it is spheres of radius root 2 at the 8 vertices of a cube, passing through each other, but closing off an octahedral cavity with positively curved triangles inside.
That's what I needed you for.
Well,
he has no idea what the fuck he's...
most.
This moment encapsulates what these three men are here for. Terry is here to appear validated by someone who knows what they're talking about. Eric is here to capitalize on a meme to bolster his profile. And Joe is here for the clicks. That's all.
I think it's a foolish thing almost always to pretend there's nothing new under the sun. You should always consider it.
Well,
you might not be correct, but there's only one way to find out.
Well, there's a difference between, see, Terrance has much greater odds of contributing to the world of engineering than he does to the world of mathematics. I mean, the odds that he's doing something new in mathematics, I'll be blunt, are very, very small.
Yep.
Even though I have patents on it that shows that all of this is
I don't want to...
Again, his odds might be greater to go in engineering, but, you know, it's like, oh, do you want to eat a fresh pile of dog shit or not? Eat an old pile. It's not good.
Go there.
It's not good either
Patents
way.
do not speak to what you think that they speak to.
That's...
Joe says it's foolish to think there's nothing new to be discovered, which of course nobody says. That's just a line people use when their objectively wrong bullshit is shown to be objectively wrong. People will continue to discover new things, and they will do so by first learning what we already know, something which takes many years and lots of hard work, and which people like Terry and Joe will never ever do. Eric says Terry will never contribute to math, and Terry brings up his patents. Surprisingly, Eric burns Terry by taking a dump on his patents. For the thousands of people on my first Terry video complaining about his patents, let's make it clear that he's totally full of crap. He doesn't have 97 patents. He has 11 design patents for children's toys and 3 patent applications, 2 of which are for jewelry. The third is the AR/VR patent he was bragging about in the other episode, and that is a rejected patent application. The official reason is abandoned, failure to respond to an office action given in 2013. And the year prior, he received a non-final rejection citing errors in diagrams and imprecise language, and too much similarity to an existing
This is funny.
patent.
Like, you can throw down those words and it makes people think that you're, like, successful. It's exactly what he's
VR
doing.
was invented before Terry was born, and he's never invented or innovated anything. He's just a lying fraud who is now pretending that he has patents on math, a thing you can't do.
The reason that science works as well as it does is that up until very recently, there were clear rules, cultures. We agreed to leave certain things that are at the door, like our religious beliefs. We agreed to submit to certain sorts of things. We were decent to each other. And that system is in a process of collapse at the moment, all right?
Yes, it's collapsing because the general public thinks that anyone who actually studies and knows things is a corrupt government shill, while confidently clueless asshats like Terry are geniuses. It will be what destroys the human race.
Terrance is coming from a polymathic perspective. He's all over the map in terms of the quality of his thinking. As far as I understand, some of his stuff is really, really good. Some of his stuff is offensive.
No, it's not.
And it's everything.
It's just not.
Now, I'm not gunning for you.
No, I don't take that offensively.
Okay.
I take it in the fact that you're here. But let's get back to what I was saying about having, if my pieces...
Of course, Eric was instead saying that Terry should be taken seriously, while in the same breath stating that some of what he says is so idiotic that it's offensive. Terry keeps the compliment and blows right past the insult by nervously steering the conversation the way he wants it to go.
But what it's showing you is where electricity is being pushed into the center, and you'll see these magnetic waves coming out. It's showing you the magnetic field.
What is he talking about?
These predict and create a natural dodecahedron, whereas these come together and create a natural icosahedron. That's not something that just happens by accident.
No, this isn't an accident.
What the fuck is like the relation?
What's going on, Terrance, for me?
Like, god damn, dude, need some help.
Together in one big ball of fury?
Yes, they just keep getting, because it's supersymmetry. They all fit together.
Oh, here we go. Oh my god. Okay.
It ain't supersymmetry, but it's freaking cool.
Right. I know what you're saying.
When Terry pretends that his shape has anything to do with a magnetic field, that's where a physicist is supposed to say, "What the hell are you talking about? Stop rambling, Terry. Magnetic field. How is this a magnetic field? Where is it? From what? How? What is a magnetic field? What causes them to exist? Do you know?" But Eric doesn't do that. He giggles to himself, knowing that Terry uses the word supersymmetric incorrectly, but that's not enough.
So he then starts to make noises about it, and he says things that I don't love, which are that those faces he associates with the electric field. And the vertices, which sometimes he calls vortices, and sometimes I'm not
vortices
sure.
is completely different.
He associates with the magnetic field. Now, I don't have a clue why he says the next
talking
thing,
about?
which is, and because the number of magnetic and the number of electric things are balanced, they cancel out, and therefore it's the weak force. And to me, it's just like super cool stuff, and then
where did the weak force come into this? Weak force is the thing that facilitates radiation. What the fuck? Oh my god, we're not even halfway done.
Suddenly turns into horseshit.
Well, look at that. Maybe Eric has it in him after all. Electric field, magnetic field, vertices, vortices. It's all horseshit. Any thoughts, Terry?
But listen why. Here we have those two tetraons on the end. They share, they both have equal poles, 4 electric poles and 4 magnetic poles, according to how I see it. Where magnetism is spinning off of the tips, the vortices, because it's no longer able to maintain that center space of spinning centripetally.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
What brought you to that conclusion?
A normal person in Terry's shoes would admit that they aren't saying anything, but Terry is not a normal person. This time, Joe doesn't want to let him off the hook as easily as he normally does. But it doesn't go anywhere. Terry just spews sentence after sentence of completely meaningless tripe that isn't even worth listening to, and he isn't held sufficiently accountable for it. Eric sometimes point blank tells Terry he's wrong, but then he just talks about something esoteric instead of helping the viewer see how wrong he is. Here's an example.
It's actually the case that electromagnetism, the weak force and the strong force, are a different form of curvature, which might be called Erasmanian curvature or fiber bundle curvature, which is not necessarily Riemannian intrinsic curvature. This object encodes the curvature, it encodes electromagnetism as the components of curvature. To your point about nothing is a straight line.
But this is where I have issues. You're talking about this is in Cartesian space, and in Cartesian space, curvature is not allowed. There's no curvature.
What the fuck is Cartesian space? He's talking about like flat plane space, I guess. Because it's a Cartesian coordinate system, and you can transform that into any kind of other space that you want, like radial or cylindrical or whatever. Spherical space.
Sure, that's allowed in Cartesian space.
That's wrong.
Oh my god.
Really?
Yeah, because what you have, and by the way, this is a super subtle thing. We've only really known this for 50 years.
No, it's not a super subtle thing that we've only known for 50 years. No curvature allowed in Cartesian space? What about all the curves we learned about in middle school? the conic sections,
Not wrong.
parabolas, hyperbolas, circles, ellipses, spheres, all kinds of other three-dimensional shapes. I didn't play the whole clip of what Eric was explaining because it's long and irrelevant, but Terry had no idea what Eric was talking about, jumped in and said the word Cartesian to sound intelligent, and then said something insanely stupid. The correct response
Cartesia.
is, why the hell are you saying there is no curvature in Cartesian space, and why would you say
Agreed.
something so insanely stupid? Eric says he's wrong, but he calls the distinction subtle because he's leaving room for Terry to wiggle away unscathed.
Yep.
He wants to ramble about something esoteric to sound intelligent when he should be explaining middle school level math for Terry, for Joe, for the listeners, because that's what they need to learn. They have no ability to understand the complicated things he's talking about. They need to learn the basics.
On a simple level, how would you describe electricity?
Well, I wouldn't know how to do it simply. Electricity is really, electromagnetism is really about rock, paper, scissors.
No, Eric,
What?
you had Terry on his back knowing that he can't comment on anything you're saying, and he managed to ask a simple question requesting a simple answer. Instead of using some abstract analogy to seem thoughtful and accessible, just answer the question. Electricity is a flow of particles possessing electric charge. That's it. Electrons are negatively charged particles, and they flow along a metal wire to your outlets to provide electrical energy. Just teach basic physics. Don't ramble for several minutes about optical illusions. When you keep things unintelligible and abstract,
Now we're getting MC
Terry
Escher in here.
feels emboldened to do this too, and that's where he likes to hide so that people can't see how dumb he is.
Predict every harmonic note,
Oh, here we go.
every wave function. It will continue on. They overlap on each other to where any size, any crystalline configuration that somebody could hope for occurs. This is the supersymmetry that I'm
That's
talking
not
about.
what that means.
Defines the entire wave field. This is one part
Wave
of the
field?
crystalline electric wave field. That's not even.
Okay,
That's
how
just
cool,
one
how
of the
cool
crystals.
is this?
Pretty
the,
cool.
the problem that you're in right now.
He doesn't know what a wave function is.
Nope,
He
a
doesn't know
crystalline
what supersymmetry
wave
means.
space.
These shapes don't predict anything. He's not doing anything. He's not demonstrating anything. Is anyone going to demand that Terry actually demonstrate literally anything?
Nope.
Is
Like, what can you do with it? Let's say he's
touch
right.
Space made of spheres and platonic solids.
What can you do with that? How can you innovate on what we already have?
Staring into this and just finding cool thing after cool thing, thinking that you're seeing Jesus. I promise you.
He's being rightfully dismissive, but he's not actually holding Terry accountable for anything he's saying. There are moments where he talks down to him, but they're too few and far between,
Shit.
and they don't stick for the viewer.
But if light passing through these show the same cymatics that we
What
look at,
what is a
with
cymatic?
natural occurrences of individual frequencies, doesn't that become its own secondary proof beyond the symmetry of what it does?
You say
What are
geometry
you
is
talking about?
and one of the things is you are at your weakest when you have
When I say
you
that-
have an equal sign. No. You're at your strongest geometrically. You're at your weakest when you have an equal sign. You say the dumbest stuff about equalities, and you say the coolest stuff about geometries. And I wonder whether you mean
It's that, like,
something.
compliment
It's funny
sandwich
that they
or
both criticized Neil's response to Terry when
I
Eric
don't
is
know. I
kind
don't
of
know
doing
what's
the
happening.
same thing as Neil. Telling Terry he's at his strongest with geometry is basically just saying that he made up some pretty shapes. That's
Yep.
what Neil said. Everything else is garbage, which is what Eric is more or less saying here too. But then we get back to the bad math.
Yep, hit
There
2,
we go.
square root. It'll be over one more. I think that may be it. Yeah. Yep. Cube it. Hit x to the third. No. Go back.
Cute. Oh my
Go back.
god.
Yep. Hit 2. Square root. Cube it.
He's not even explaining. Like, why?
Now
Why is he
divide by
doing
2.
this? You need to explain it.
Hit
Like,
equal.
rigorously.
Cube it again. X to the third. Divide by 2.
Why?
That
What the
is
fuck?
a loop. Cube it again. Hit x to the third. That's an unnatural
Talk to me about
equation.
unnatural.
It's a loop. It's a tuck inside of the matrix. It doesn't.
Oh, the matrix
allow for
now.
math to make
Jesus
sense because of
Christ.
the square, because of the identity principle.
There is
1
no
equals 1.
There is no tuck in the matrix. Terry is just a moron who doesn't understand basic math. Why is it so hard to accept that there could be a number for which cubing it and doubling it yields the same result? What would someone do if they wanted to figure out whether such a number exists? Well, we could do some basic algebra. Let's find the value x for which cubing it, x cubed, gives you the same result as doubling it, 2x.
Gotta love it.
Let's set these expressions equal to each other and solve for x. X cubed is x times x times x. Now what do? Let's cancel an x from both sides.
Yep.
That leaves us with x times x, or x squared, equals 2. Take the square root of both sides, and we get
There it
root
is.
2. X equals root 2. Root 2 is a number for which cubing and doubling gives the same result, 2 root 2. You can even prove this by looking at the graphs of these functions. Y equals x cubed gives this curve here, and y equals 2x is
There
this
it is.
line here. Where do these functions intersect?
Gotta love it.
Root 2, negative root 2, and 0, since they both pass through the origin. There are 3 values for which cubing and doubling gives the same result. There is no loop. He's just performing basic arithmetic operations over and over again for absolutely no reason.
No, the reason
You
is he
double
wants to
2
appear
get 4,
like
and then
smarter
subtract
or
2
something.
to get 2, and do that over and over again until the end of the universe. That's just you wasting your time. Now, I'm quite confident that every single person watching this video understood what I just explained,
Yep.
and also learned this in middle school or by about 10th grade at the latest. This is what somebody should be showing Terry. How does Eric choose to address this baloney?
You're trying to say something. What you're saying is wrong.
Yep.
What I'm seeing,
No. You're saying what you're saying is fine. I agree that you have a transformation that I called T. You can put those
Oh
two
my
steps
God.
together, which
Come
is
on,
cube
man.
and divide by 2.
Yep.
That thing is going to be dead still till the end of time. That's your point. And then you pass judgment on it. And you say that is not logical and it's irrational. And I don't know what you mean.
He doesn't mean anything. He just can't do basic math. So please teach him the basic math. That's the reason you're there, isn't it?
that loop right there. That if
Oh,
some,
is your point that there's something special about the square root of 2?
I'm saying that the square root of 2 is a manufactured number
What
because of
the
the identity principle. If the
That
identity
1 equals 1.
principle was not involved, then they wouldn't have a problem with 1 times 1 equaling 2, or
Why
I mean-
are you offended by 1 times 1 equaling 1?
just because action and reaction, the universe, it's the separation of math from science, when math was supposed to define physical things. So when they have things that
Oh,
doesn't
No,
align,
that is so fucking false. Math does not define physical things. Physics defines physical things, and we use the language of math to express that.
makes sense. The rest of the audience don't understand. They're like,
Terry is so transparently grasping at straws here, it's pathetic. He's a malfunctioning robot trying to stay on script. Action and reaction, all his usual nonsense, just because he can't accept that he doesn't understand basic math. It's tragic. And you can see how exasperated he gets when his script, that has been impressing coked up losers at Hollywood parties, falls flat in front of educated people.
Fear, what the hell?
No, I'm literally saying
It's
there
like
is
Homelander in the
nothing
most recent episode of The
universe
Boys,
that is at rest
where he's
because
so
everything
confident he has
is
no
moving and
idea
communicating
how to
through
do anything.
vibration, and vibration
Oh,
requires
vibration now.
oscillation, and oscillation requires motion.
This is his magnificent proof that 1 times 1
Vibration.
equals 2. Things vibrate. He's a deer in headlights at this point, but
Yeah.
he just cannot accept
Oh
a
my God.
reality where
Yep.
he isn't a genius.
Science
Yeah.
took a wrong turn when it walked down the road of relativity.
Okay.
In
Oh my
abandoning
God.
the ether And now they've walked down this road, and now they realize that it's...
But there's never been an experiment to prove the ether, and there's been tons of shit to prove relativity. We have global positioning system because of relativity. Like we have gravitational lensing that we can see because of relative. Like, what the... Oh my god.
It's a potential dead end, but instead of turning around...
It's not a dead end. It works
saying,
incredibly well.
Let's use the luminiferous ether that all of these equations were built off of.
That does not exist.
A young man that's outside of the world has come in and said, okay, I have the wave conjugation.
I want to know what experiment he did to prove the luminiferous ether. That's what I want to know. Number one question.
Make up and prove the etheric nature, the etheric substance.
He's completely manic. Einstein was a
he is
moron,
melting
and I'm
down.
so much smarter. That's what he's saying. He can't do second grade math, but he's smarter than Einstein.
Yep.
The hubris is unimaginable. Imagine what it's like
I agree with that.
in Terry's head. He has no idea what relativity is. Truly none. You could show him any page from a relativity textbook, and he would just crap his pants.
Yep.
And yet, he is...
Shit, I crap my
He
pants.
simply has to be. Or what is reality? What is reality for Terry if he isn't the supreme chosen one? How can he be the Kwisatz Haderach? How can he be Neo? How can he be Jesus the Christ if he isn't smarter than Einstein? I'll give Eric some credit for using a harsher tone in this section, but it's just not enough to break through this egomaniacal defense system.
Is this something, so this is my community and how it thinks of everything in the world, all right?
Right.
Do you have a way of relating what you think about in terms of what my community has wrong? Does this mean anything to you?
If you remove gravity outside of the equation, you take gravity out, because gravity is affected. The gravity is actually covered by that strong electron.
Dude, if I don't know all this shit, there's no fucking way that
this is not a gotcha, and it's not me.
I know. I'm just saying.
Do you know?
Like, I'm not a master at general relativity.
Best as we're talking about.
I can make my way around it, but goddamn,
it's imaginary.
Yeah.
You know, d to the 4. I don't know what the d represents.
So that's the volume element saying that you're in 4-dimensional space and you're going to take an integral.
And y to a negative g, y to a negative gravity.
Yeah, that's the determinant of the space-time metric with which you might have an issue.
there it is.
Okay, so in other words, you're normalizing. You're saying that if the rulers look one way or the rulers look another way, according to Einstein, you have to put more weight or less weight on a region of space. Do you know what that R is? That's the foreplay, and then in the parentheses is where the stuff gets crazy.
Explain it.
That's enough of that. Terry has no idea what any of this means. He can't do middle school level physics.
This ain't middle school level physics, I'll tell you that.
And he looks like a little kid for several minutes while Eric takes a pointless flex, complete with little interjections to pretend like he's following along.
Yep. By the way, this is one of the shrines that DSP couldn't beat.
Rock, in that term, Cybar.
He got so fucking angry.
Is telling us the kinetics and the interaction through minimal coupling of the matter with the force that's in the line above. And then the last 3 terms are the fudge factor due to Peter Higgs, because we found out in the
Higgs boson.
It's the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. But does the audience get what they need out of this? Is it registering for them what a toddler Terry really is? I don't think so, because they're all zoning out right now, just like Joe. And it goes on for a very long time. But once Eric wraps it up, Terry desperately tries to steer it back his way.
Now, this is the difference between having, they've been working on this for damn near 60, 70 years. But they don't have any physical models that represent any of these things. And if my physical models describe the electric force and the magnetic force and is able to account for all of the actions that takes place or the effects that we see, then it should be a better replacement instead of having to go through...
You didn't do that.
I did do that. Let me show you.
All right.
Let me show you.
Okay, show.
Now it's time to show.
Okay.
Oh shit, here we go.
He says they don't have any physical models because he's never looked inside a physics textbook, and then he goes back to pretending his dumb shapes do anything whatsoever, which they don't. Let's make sure everyone can see how pointless these shapes are.
Tetrium, as I say, begins the entire dance. It's
there it is.
I would call that would be Planck to me. That would be the proton. That would be the beginning of
What the
everything.
You
fuck?
have 4 different things to this. You say, 1, it's dark matter.
I said
Because it's interstitial. Wait.
okay.
You say 1, it's dark matter because it's interstitial. 2, you say it's hydrogen.
It becomes it takes
3, you say,
Why?
well, look, it's got 4 electric and 4 magnetic.
We don't even have
Excuse
to go
me.
beyond this. Terry just
Yep.
a moment ago said this was a proton. Now he's saying it's hydrogen.
Hydrogen, yep.
Eric says he has previously correlated this with dark matter. How to any of this? He is combining random shapes with random words, nothing more.
If we
Yep.
start with this as electricity, then we want to go to the very first phase from it. The first thing that happens to it is it decays. The first line of decay, and that first line of decay is literally
Dude, I can't
just
handle this.
putting on 2 magnetic fields.
So the shape is electricity now? I thought it was hydrogen. It decays? How? And into what? What is a line of decay? And because of 2 magnetic fields, none of this means anything. Eric should be telling him that
Yep.
none of that means anything.
Yep.
And refusing to move forward until Terry admits that none of it means anything.
Anytime you're urinating, a man is urinating, he sees this pattern. Where
What
it's
the
expanding
Dude, you need to go get your
and
dick
contracting.
checked out.
Expanding, contracting,
Right.
that braiding behind the boat. This describes that motion from that. But then let's go to the next stage of decay. The next stage of decay
What is
will
it?
be
Oh my god, what is he talking about? Decay.
foresight. So what these are responsible.
Wait, what's going on?
How you doing, Eric?
My brain is melted. My brain is so
It's
fucking
like a
melted.
pea stream from a wiener, so it's revolutionary physics.
Dude, you gotta
This
get
is
your
right
dick
on
checked
par
on
with
that
the
if that's
sun
what you're
goes
seeing
cuckoo.
coming out there.
It makes me wonder about the kinds of fetishes he's hiding. And Terry
Oh,
is just playing
God.
the part of the disheveled scientist, while Joe and Eric wonder what will happen next. It takes a while, but Eric finally steers it in a better direction.
If you want to say, I don't
God.
understand this, you get a positive reaction from us. If you say, I have something and I'm not quite sure what
I-
it is,
I did not account for
can
that.
I get it? An evaluation because I think
Fuck.
I might have something. You should be able to get something from a guy like that.
And that's what I did. I went
I
to
did not
Oxford,
account for that.
Didn't get that.
But
I
I'm
went,
trying to
I
say
went
something.
these
Okay,
cats.
go.
Okay.
Then you do this other thing, which is you teach. And your teaching is not good.
Correct.
You tell us stuff that's not true.
I agree with that.
We can tell is not true. And then we say, okay, I can throw out the entire
That is very janky.
What did I say that wasn't true though? That's what I'm. That's. I
Well,
mean,
1
my
times
whole-
1 is not equal to 2. Let's start there. That,
Exactly.
in fact, I'm angry at Joe because Joe should have pushed back on that. Joe is in awe
The
of the way
calculator said
Joe has no idea what the
doesn't
fuck is
equal
going
one.
on here. What are you talking
Finally, a
about?
little criticism thrown Joe's way for platforming somebody who pretends 1 times 1 equals 2 and not
Yep.
pushing back on it whatsoever.
The largest
Yes, Terry
podcast
says
in the
things
world.
that are objectively wrong all the time. Let's see if we can keep up this momentum.
I didn't mean to. That's not what I meant to do. But in me saying 1 times 1 equals 2, like I said,
Like,
that's
it
a
just-
metaphor that there's something very wrong with
Math
the
can't be metaphors.
Math should
there's
not be
nothing
done.
wrong with the math.
I'm saying the math that we are doing is still based on linear projections, even though we are in
What does that even mean?
space.
Terry, make up your goddamn mind.
I have
Is
no
it
idea
a
what he's
metaphor
talking
or
about.
not?
Like, I
If it's a metaphor, then stop pretending that 1 times 1 should actually literally equal 2. Or just admit that you don't
That's
know
true,
what a
too.
metaphor is. Sadly, from here, it's just back to a bunch of esoteric concepts. Eric brings it back 20 minutes later to dunk on Terry a little bit.
And that process is the radiating process.
Let's try it
It's a
now.
process I call it magnetism that that tears apart
that verifies that which was concentrically drawn together through electricity.
He learned a bunch of science words and just put them all together and thought he was smart. That's what happened.
That's what I feel.
I'm taller than Joe.
Right.
Imagine I challenge Joe to a fight. What do you think happens? I get my ass kicked.
Well, Joe knows some shit that you
Joe
don't
knows
know.
some serious shit. I have
This is pretty embarrassing.
in terms of weight.
We're gonna get there.
I have an advantage on him in terms of height. He's in great condition. The guy knows how to fight.
I
He's
hope.
got a spinning back kick to dive. Okay? What happens is I get my ass kicked. You do not know when you're going to get your ass kicked. And
Yep.
It's a big problem that you're going to keep hoarding because I watch you. You keep finding
Again. He's putting this shit out here and everyone's dumping on him and he's just going to like firmly plant his feet even more. It's not good.
Could come together.
No, not my ball.
And it's like, I'm trying to be nice as pie because I'm inspired by what you're trying to do.
That's something, I guess.
But you have no idea.
Where's my ball?
Like, when you're fucking with a guy with an Italian last name and a shiny suit with a funny collar that you don't recognize.
I don't know what they're talking about.
Gotta stop.
I'm so out of the loop.
I see the metaphor.
That got a little dark, but even Eric, who came here to scoop up some Terry fans, is starting to get a little tired of listening to Terry pretend he has any clue what he's talking about. But remember, while some of his ramblings are signature Terry bullshit, a lot of it is lifted from elsewhere.
Can I ask you, before we go on further, you feel that the theory of gravity is incorrect, and there's something
Except
else
it's
that
not. It's
accounts for
like, it's just not.
all of the effects that we call gravity.
What are we talking about?
And what do you think that is?
I feel that's electricity. I feel that gravity
The
is
theory of gravity is electricity.
Yes, again, Terry watched some Thunderbolts videos.
Oh, the electric universe. That's right.
So he tries to present
Forgot all
those
about
lies
that
as his own.
crazy
the opposite
bullshit.
of those thermals. I believe that gravity is the opposite of those thermals in the electric force. It's
Thermals?
the pulling down the same way the thermals push up.
What do you
Like,
think about that?
what the fuck?
Well, because I'm going to get into the same thing. I'm trying to say to you.
I know, and I'm just saying, and I
The
could be
thermals of
You could be
electricity?
wrong. You are wrong,
Yeah,
Terry. You're
agreed.
so wrong that the word wrong does not sufficiently describe your wrongness. You are, as they say,
Yep.
fractally wrong. You are wrong at every conceivable level of resolution. You use words incorrectly.
I love that. I've never heard that.
Words or
Fractally
other
wrong.
concepts incorrectly, and the combinations
gonna use that.
themselves result in incorrect statements. Everything you say is immaculately wrong, and yet you confidently present your gibberish as though it is the solution to every problem in physics because you're a narcissist.
Deep inside the
Jesus.
atoms or any other piece of matter is nothing but a dancing, vibrating cosmic symphony of strings.
Okay. Now, if you take what he just
Oh
said,
shit, we're
this
getting
is
into string
entirely
theory
respectful.
now.
This is a Columbia professor lecturing me for 40 fucking years about what they're going to do one day when they grow up. That everything is just a string, and just the way a violin can vibrate in different modes. All of the particles come from this excitation string. It's exactly how you sound with the linchpin. Now, string theory is not a terrible idea initially. It
Can't
becomes
be
a terrible
tested, though.
idea when the string theorists suggest that nothing else has happened for 40 years, and they've sought to kill off every single person who has pointed out that there are other ideas, and
Quantum gravity.
they don't listen
Loop
to their
quantum
calls.
gravity.
And so, in part, you're going to incur an emotional penalty from me with the linchpin, which is a terrible thing because the linchpin is actually incredibly cool. So the same basic pattern, which is one thing explains it all, has a terrible kind of
Because I'm about to get you. I'm about to get you.
But my point is,
No, Terry, you're
No.
not about to get anyone. You're being
What the
shown
fuck?
that you're stupid right to your face. Eric is correct to point out that he's totally ridiculous for pretending to have solved
Like, I want to know the double think of him being taught math and then him looking and saying that's wrong. Like, I want to know how that transition happened, because again, we have computers, we have airplanes, we have bridges, we have roads, we have all of these machines that can do wildly crazy shit. Like, it's all based off of physics and math to describe it. Like, it works. Show me an instance in which it does not work in a classical everyday kind of situation. He can't, because it doesn't exist.
Solved anything with his dumb shape. He's also correct to point out that string theory hasn't really turned out to be the big solution to anything. Yeah. But again, he is way too charitable in pretending that anything Terry says is anywhere near the level of string theory, a real theory which is totally coherent, based on valid mathematical structures, and is in general real science that just turned out to be somewhat of a dead end. Terry just vomits hot garbage, but Eric has his anti-academia agenda to attend to, so he tries to make Terry and theoretical physicists look stupid at the same time.
Another thing that I see you taking a lot of guff for is the periodic table. Now, I don't like your periodic table, but you are also the only person I know who's pushing into the public consciousness the understanding.
It's dangerous.
Everything Terry says about chemistry is totally insane, so this doesn't sound like it's going to go well.
The ionization
it's not.
Of the elements as represented here in the periodic table, and we are going to produce tones representing those energies. The way that this app works is each
my god. He's starting to relate like music to that, and that is just doubly annoying for me.
Tones with these push buttons. The settings in this control panel here will determine how those energies will be converted into tones that we can hear. First of all, we're just going to look at a few of the controls for now. See, we have transpose frequency. The frequencies corresponding to these ionization energies are extremely
I guess it's that
high, so
left bottom screen.
As you said.
So here we're going to transpose it down. In this case,
what are they talking about, though? The humans can only hear 20 to 20,000 hertz. Like, I don't fucking understand any of what they're trying to. I don't know.
Or I can go.
I'm just gonna get off and cry. This is what the world's become.
This is meaningless. Ionization energies are not sounds, just like light is not sound. You can take any set of numbers and magically transform them into frequencies of sound, and it is absolutely meaningless.
Yep.
You could do it for the annual GDP of every country, for the distance of every star in the galaxy from galactic center, for the number of banana cream pies sold at a particular bakery each month.
I've never had a banana cream pie.
Anything.
I think I would like it.
Elements are not sounds.
See, I tried to do the same thing, and I called.
People treat you like you're nuts.
I called.
I wonder why.
Asking for the prime resonant frequency of the elements, and they wouldn't give them to me.
What the fuck?
And nobody at UCLA would tell him the prime resonant frequency of the elements, because that's not a thing.
Yep.
Do you notice how
it's
Eric
a group
is not
of words.
explaining anything whatsoever about how these tones are being produced? What set of data is being interpreted? The ionization energy of hydrogen is 1,312 kilojoules per mole. How does that become the little ding you hear? And what could this value possibly have to do with any kind of frequency of anything? Ionization is not a cyclical process.
Maybe I'm really trying to like find my way through this maze. Maybe he's talking about like in astronomy, if you take a picture of like of Jupiter or whatever, anything really, you can layer it and assign a color to each layer. So like you could take a picture with like a red filter and then a green filter and then a blue filter, right? And then if you layer them all together, you get, what Jupiter is supposed to look like. But a lot of times people do these things called like false coloring, false image. Anyway, they assign a value of color to like a bigger portion of the spectrum, of the EM spectrum, so you can identify like what part of that is maybe in the infrared, and they might label that like a green or something. Anyway, the point is he's trying to like maybe connect musical sounds to, like, I don't know, the ionization and scaling it linearly? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how you would effectively pick the starting tone. And it's all nonsense anyway. I'm just really trying to grasp onto any possible wrongness that isn't batshit wrong. Fractally
you
wrong.
ionize hydrogen, and then it's an ion. The end. Frequencies describe cyclical processes, quantifying a number of cycles per unit time. This is one instance where Terry and Eric are both saying different versions of absolutely nothing.
You said this thing about hydrogen 40.5.
Well, no,
hertz.
I wasn't saying.
Wait a second.
But I wasn't saying that hydrogen is 40.5. I was saying that the key of E is 40.5 hertz
God.
and doubles to 162. Those things.
Yeah, but you said it in a very
Key of E, we're really bringing
The
music theory into
40.5
this.
It's not 40.5 hertz. It's 40.5 megahertz, associated not with hydrogen but with mercury.
But you have to keep, once you keep doubling that,
But wait a
you'll
second,
get
Terrance.
to the.
This is just ridiculous. Not only do these frequencies not correlate with anything whatsoever about any chemical elements, he doesn't even understand the difference between a note and a key in music. A single frequency defines a single note, and a single note does not define a key. This is the key of E major. This is the key of E minor. One note is not a key. Terry does not understand basic music theory, but again, the most important thing is that these numbers have nothing
I love
to
music
do
theory,
with
by the
any
way.
elements. Eric is failing miserably here.
Like hydrogen. And then you imagine carbon is an octave above, I think is what you said. Doubling the frequency.
But what does that predict?
What is
like
that thing below hydrogen? And you say, no, it's too dense to be perceived. Like, bullshit.
But there is ultra low frequencies, even though we cannot hear it.
Yes, but
there's ultra low frequencies, and that's what I'm saying.
That's where your analogy broke down, Terrance.
No, because hydrogen sits in the same exact position as carbon does when you're looking at it.
No, it doesn't.
What does it?
It doesn't come off at the same coloration. It doesn't have the same.
Oh, we're bringing colors into it now.
You're talking about a periodic table from like 1926.
Tone, coloration, octave.
Coloration?
It's pure insanity.
Really?
Elements are not frequencies. They're not sounds. Eric calls bullshit, but he doesn't explain why. Hydrogen has one proton in the nucleus. One. You can't have fewer than one proton in the nucleus of an atom, or you don't have an atom.
Beyond all this, what does it predict?
That's the answer. That's the explanation for why Terry is wrong that every 10th grader should understand. And he doesn't say it, because Eric has bigger fish to fry.
Pull up the Neil stuff on that I prepared on that page. Because I cannot believe how disingenuous this is. He calls you the worst insult in academics, which is there was a study called
Dunning-Kruger,
is both an effect that is studied and the ultimate insult. It's basically your
Yes,
and
Eric doesn't like how Neil politely told Terry he's a complete moron with no idea what he's talking about. But Eric has offered a similar sentiment throughout this conversation. So what gives?
This is Neil deGrasse Tyson, just so you don't feel bad about yourself, talking about me and my theories based on a question in an Ask Me Anything. Will you be able to talk to Eric Weinstein about the new theory of geometric unity? This is from 2013.
What is this?
You're all wondering about this. Cosmos is not your normal talking head documentary. In fact, it's the feature of the original that enabled the series to live an entire generation down the shelf life of hundreds of
I don't know what they're talking about now.
Afterwards. So the answer is no.
It all makes sense now. Eric is butthurt that Neil mocked his ideas just like he did to Terry.
Wait, what? Whoa. Neil deGrasse Tyson, typically less constructive to even PhD level challenges to most any establishment consensus.
Eric is butthurt that Neil mocked his ideas just like he did to Terry.
Oh, okay,
because
that's
in the
funny.
End,
They have an
Eric's
axe to
work
grind.
is a giant turd too, just with much better turd polish. He is rejected from academia because his ideas are garbage, hence the anti-academia rants,
There it
which are
is.
responsible for his rise to popularity among the science-illiterate general public, and his acceptance by contrarian club leader Joe Rogan.
More or less, from what I can piece together, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who started Pergamon Press, destroyed...
Jeffrey Epstein's Ghislaine Maxwell?
Correct. He figured out how to destroy science and make a fortune by blowing out the number of journals and forcing every university to subscribe to every journal that he could figure out how to publish, because to not subscribe to all of the journals required an admission that you had an incomplete library. So he diluted the quality of the editorship of the leading journals.
And we have reached the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy portion of the show. For those of you who watched my video debunking Formscapes, you're familiar with this Robert Maxwell script, and it's idiotic. He was one guy at the top of one publishing house, and he did not have unlimited power in shaping the publishing world.
I've never even heard of that. I don't know what they're talking about at this point.
The only respectable way to share scientific findings, and we don't need to dwell on this pathetic anti-establishment script that is the central grift of any charlatan like Eric.
So what you're saying, though, can I just summarize this? What you're saying is that Neil deGrasse's understanding of peer review is flawed.
Sure.
And that it is not really available to someone like Terrance.
It really isn't. He knows that.
Yes.
Of course it's not available to Terry. He's a science-illiterate moron who can't construct a coherent sentence. His rants are so stupid that they would get an F as a 6th grade science project. So how could they get published in a prestigious journal that is reserved for educated, hardworking people who do science for a living? But again, Eric has to pretend that this isn't why Terry can't get published. He has to project this image of the ivory tower and the elites that don't like the uppity black man who is making waves with his brilliant insights, because that's what serves his own grift. This is the precise reason that Eric should not be the one in this room right now.
Now you look at what Neil said about your stuff.
That's the worst.
He's right.
Where like you have a very well-educated person, but they go down the deep or the rabbit hole, the deep end, whatever. And
on the other hand,
they kind of inflict some sort of sway in the community of, in this case, science.
I do not
like, even if it's just a little bit.
Any economic or authoritative interest in taking anything that you've done, putting it under my own name. I am simply here to help you.
Yeah.
And when we talked about the angle and all this stuff, I can tell you that that's a great idea. It may have been had by somebody else because I don't know, but I assume it comes from you.
Of course he didn't do it. He held a contest to get someone else to build his drone for him.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
What was it that he wanted to do with them?
So I was trying to reach out to Elon Musk. I was trying to reach out to Jeff
I was
Bezos.
like outsourcing his
my
ideas.
My main goal was I was building these to clean up the upper atmosphere, all of that debris that's up there. And
you're going to need to build a fuckload of them.
The asteroid belt.
Yes, a drone that moves by propellers which push air is going to fly around in the vacuum of space and visit the asteroid belt. Great thinking, Terry, but it doesn't matter. Eric is
This shit is legitimately funny. That is some of the funniest shit I've heard.
For 40 years, we've heard this unbelievable trope that only the string theory
Flying a fucking drone in space to an asteroid belt. I'm sorry. That shit is so fucking funny. Can you imagine, like, this single drone going into space? Its propellers are still spinning, heading towards the asteroid belt. That is the most fucking funny thing I've imagined in a while.
And it's total hogwash. And there's no way we can get out from under these people. In the case of Anthony
Oh my
Fauci
God.
And Jay Bhattacharya, I was just with Jay Bhattacharya in Italy. You'd invite Tony Fauci and Jay Bhattacharya.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. We could do any of that.
I bring garlic.
Yeah.
We can have Michio Kaku in
some
here.
crosses on the wall.
Let's have Michio Kaku and Brian Greene. Let's have a discussion about string theory. Let's fundamentally discuss neoclassical economics. Shall we discuss whether or not random mutation is the true engine of neo-Darwinism? Is that reasonable? Or do some of these crazy people who say, I don't know what it is, but random mutation isn't powerful enough to build proteins because stability is too difficult?
String theory, bad. Fauci, bad. Neo-Darwinism,
here we go.
bad. All the anti-establishment, electric universe, anti-vaxxer, creationist, sympathetic fanboys just climaxed in their pants. Everything from a real institution is wrong, and every contrarian is right.
Yeah, that's
My
what they.
debunkers always
That's their
mock this sentiment
agenda.
because it's the only thing these frauds ever say.
We've
1 + 1
lost
= 2.
everything. And podcasts, as dippy and shitty and as variable in quality as they are,
The fuck?
Yes, they vary in quality, and this is a bad one, for reasons I won't belabor for a third time.
The thing that pisses everybody off is the fact that I have the models behind what I'm talking about. When I talk about when we describe the electric field or the plasmic field, I've got models that define every aspect of that motion, and I'm waiting for...
Can I not get in here yet? I forgot.
Yes, it pisses people off when you say that, because no, you do not have that. You do not have a model. You do not have anything that does anything like what you're saying, and you don't even know what any of those words mean. That's why people are annoyed by you, Terry.
But Terrance, you know what he's saying about not being an expert in teaching and then coming from the outside, and that it's insulting. It's insulting. It's insulting. It's a bad way to approach a concept, because the people that have been studying these concepts for so long instantaneously are told that they don't know.
I think I can't get in here.
And that's offensive to people that are actual experts in a thing.
If I remember right.
The same ideas could be portrayed in a way that does not do that.
I have to learn that nomenclature.
It's just you're so much smarter than most of the people you're talking to.
No,
he's
Terry
not.
is not smarter than all on a day-to-day basis, but he thinks he is.
Not even
That's
a little
the
bit.
Problem. Joe has it in him to admit that other people actually study and learn things, and Terry just says that he needs to learn the nomenclature.
Learn what words mean.
Understand the words he throws
Oh
together,
my god.
But they all just
that
move on
funny.
pretending that Terry isn't stupid.
there's a creative spark and a spirit in you that I really see and appreciate. It comes from an older era, and we don't have.
Dude, they're being like way too nice
in
to
the
him.
academy anymore. We used to have lots of these.
Like, don't fucking sugarcoat it. Come on.
And
now.
right now, what we've got is a specialization epidemic.
There is no specialization epidemic. You have to specialize in order to contribute to the advancement of science, because we already know so much. There will never be another Da Vinci. That era is gone. Being a generalist is only useful for science communicators like me who want to explain as much basic information as possible, because we have to point out many different holes that people are digging into the body of potential knowledge. Generalism will no longer allow you to dig a deeper hole than what's been dug, because everybody is miles deep into the abyss already.
The funny part about it is that that's the midwit's endpoint, is that they see heterodox thinkers and they can't figure out how to place them. And so they just say, if I can find one error, I can reject everything.
Terry isn't a heterodox thinker. People aren't desperately searching for one error. Everything he says is an error. He is an error factory. Eric is bending
not what I meant to do.
To blame academia for unjustly rejecting Terry, because that's the boogeyman that Terry and Eric have in common when they preach.
And you keep triggering that, and that's
with
why
the
you are
one times one, but that's why I keep saying the 1 times 1.
Oh my God, what is he talking about?
To us. It is life and death. You try to sneak 1 times 1 through airport security. It's like, it's just a Glock 19.
What the fuck?
I understand that, but it was really to gain the attention.
They never do it.
To gain the attention.
Oh shit.
Anyone want to take any bets as to whether Terry will officially admit that 1 times 1 equals 1 from now on? Somehow I doubt it. But let's give Terry one more slap on the wrist.
There it is.
So, what was the name of the
university? Thank God we're nearly done.
South Carolina University.
Yeah. You did?
I was working with...
Thank God. My brain is melted. I can't even, like, understand half the fucking shit that he's saying. I tried to. It's just, like, sounds coming out of his mouth in random order. Like, I'm really, like, distraught over this. Yeah, 1 times 1 equals 2. A bit out there.
Diamonds. We were growing diamonds. And I developed a way in which to grow diamonds larger than the 2-carat diamonds. I went over to South Carolina University and I talked to them about introducing the diamond process, into their university. They were going to give me an honorary degree.
Okay.
Now I'm thinking they're giving me an honorary degree in chemical engineering
Diamondology.
because of what I'm doing. And it's just an honorary degree in humanities that they gave me. And so I went.
They shouldn't have even given him
like,
that.
Yeah, well, I got an honorary degree from them, but that ended up coming across as if I got an honorary degree in chemical engineering.
That's not due to you being a math magician or anything. What he's talking about, no fucking sane person on this planet can follow along. Holy shit.
Which I don't have an honorary degree in chemical engineering.
Assume you did. An honorary degree
is worthless.
It's like, would you take if your child needed brain surgery, would you go to Dr. Dre?
No.
Okay.
This is just pathetic. Terry was given an honorary degree, which is worthless, but he presented it as an actual doctorate in chemical engineering. He knows he's being called out, so he offers this total fabrication about...
Yeah, so he's been going around telling people that he has a degree from wherever the fuck he has it. He's not, like, specifying what it is. So it's him saying, like, oh, yeah, I got this degree here, when he never, like, details it for what and what actual degree it is. I know that trick.
Diamonds to act confused, as though one can get a doctorate without taking classes and doing real research at an institution. Then Eric mocks him, and again, rightfully so. But in doing so, we expose the hypocrisy in figures like both Terry and Eric, who pretend to rage against academia while simultaneously presenting themselves as experts based on academic laurels.
It's the double think. I don't even know how people do that.
He never even went to college. He's as uneducated as they come. In Eric's case, it's true. He does have a doctorate from Harvard, but that's where this story breaks down. If academia is truly so corrupt,
that guy's butt hurt that he got like kicked out and people mocked him.
If the degrees mean something, then there is value in academia, and disparaging these institutions as corrupt and limiting is meaningless. You can't have it both ways.
QAnon can't be total bullshit.
Oh my god! Now we're getting into QAnon.
Some core in it that's right, and some craziness. If you think about Dianetics and Scientology, the first thing that they teach you about is the reactive mind. That's not a terrible theory. And then before you know it, it's Xenu and volcanoes, right? So what's going on is that people are not aware of how kayfabe works, right? Wrestling is one of the most dangerous,
what is he talking about?
Sports.
Why are we talking about wrestling now?
Now, it happens to be theatrical and pre-programmed. But if you've ever got anybody, like the wrestling community suffers a death rate unlike any other sport in the world.
That's true.
What you have to understand is that kayfabe, and I highly recommend you look at my essay from 2011, is about what happens when fantasy and reality intermingle. And that's what you did on the last time that you were here.
What is he? K-Fed? Kevin Federline? Is that? I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about.
I can talk to you about the fantasy, I can talk to you about the fraud and the lies, but I'm also going to talk to you about the contributions, the genius, and the insight. And what I want the world to learn is you're getting
shit.
Illusions that you're not properly imagining. There's almost always a core of truth and reality that the mainstream won't acknowledge. And then there's almost always a bullshit payload that gets leavened in, because in some sense the mainstream is our official cult. And then all the rest of us produce these other cults. In my situation, I've gone 40 years and I haven't had a really deep conversation about GU, geometric unity, with my own community.
Because it doesn't...
Is that you're in a world
he put out some fucking weird shit, and he got butthurt that everyone said it was wrong.
The conversation with you is dwindling to fewer than 10.
This is the summation of Eric's entire identity. He is positioning himself to appear above Terry, which he is, while simultaneously manufacturing some kernel of truth in Terry's ramblings that isn't there, in order to pretend he is unjustly mocked by academia. This serves
that's like a completely, that's like a side quest to this whole
because
thing.
His theory of everything is a pile of crap, just like Terry's insane ramblings. He simply is able to package it in a more appealing way because he understands math and Terry doesn't. And all of this is happening on Joe's show because his show has become self-aggrandizing intellectual
And
pornography
it's so
for
fucked
people who
up.
like to pretend.
Like I said this earlier, it's the #1 podcast. And to have these people on there giving them a platform is going to really, really fuck up some people when it otherwise shouldn't have. Like, I don't know. Spreading of this kind of fucking batshit insane information is in the same realm of like flat earthers and what's the other one they just talked about? The electric cosmos or whatever the hell. But like everyone's being exposed to it. And these people use these big words. And so stupid people think that they're actually smart because they use big words. And then we got a bunch of fucking stupid people running around telling everybody about whatever the fuck he says. and all that other shit. The like flat earth stuff. So stupid.
They understand complex topics, but don't. In the end, despite Eric's motives, perhaps the world is slightly better for him having outright stated numerous times that Terry has no idea what he's talking about. And
well,
yet somehow,
sure.
from what I've been able to gather, Terry fans seem to feel vindicated by this episode. The fact that anyone, Terry or his fans, can walk away from this conversation without having learned anything is a gigantic missed opportunity. One thing we know for sure is that he certainly won't be shutting up anytime soon. So there
God
you
help
have
us
it,
all.
my assessment
God,
of
oh
the
shit.
bag that was Eric and Terry on Joe Rogan. No matter what the configuration of guests, this show never really seems to reach any logical resolution.
Nope.
Maybe we will get there one day. Until next time.
Oh my god. That was like the hardest thing I've had to do in a while. That was very unpleasant. Jesus Christ. Why is that off? What the fuck? There we go. Okay. Back to our regular scheduled programming. Yeah, it was like 4 hours. I watched that Professor Dave video, the one that we just finished, and that condensed it down. And I was about to nope out about 25 minutes in. I couldn't follow like anything that they were saying. It's like it actually hurts my brain. Anyway. Hold on. I want that here. He started talking about wave conjugation that, like, I had never heard that word in my entire life. I think he meant wave superposition. I think. Like, I was scratching for any kind of thing that made even the tiniest sliver of sense. I couldn't find any. Could not find any. Why does my mouse keep like unclicking? Has anyone ever had that problem? Like I'll click and hold, but then it will like release it. It's very annoying. And I have no idea how to fix it. Give me a minute. Shit, that was 2 hours. It felt like 20. God damn. God, what am I doing in here? music's a bit loud. Shit. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I got it before you sent that message. All right, bubble time. Goddamn, my head actually hurts from that. I never watched like the original one that he did, the Terrance whatever, but I heard about it and I was like, nah, I'm not gonna cover that. I'll just get like incredibly frustrated. And then this one comes along and yeah, I was pretty much right. Where the fuck am I? Okay. Let's see. What are you up to today? Senekawak. Okay. Weird names. Oh, I did the I just did the shrine thing that got DSP like incredibly angry. Like, what the fuck? It's not that difficult. Like, goddamn, he's so fucking stupid. RFL, huh? What is that? What kind of game is that? I've never heard of it. Yeah, go eat, cry. Yeah, it's pretty much parallel to my life. Huh, I've never heard of that. Okay, what are we doing? Building a little dirigible. Interesting. Is it like fantasy or sci-fi or what? Gotcha. Turn-based or like an action game? Gotcha. We may have to do this fairly quickly. I don't know if this is gonna work. Oh, cool. Shit. Yep. That's what I thought it would do. Oh god. Oh god. Put the other one on. Put the other one on. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're good. Of course. That is the most important thing. Man, I wish I had vodka right now. The fu- oh, we gotta... okay. Where did my little thing go? Where did my platform go? What the this is gonna do nothing. It's not your fault. Yeah. Okay, I didn't think I could make it up here. Now that I have, the fuck do I do? I need to get... Okay. I'm getting kind of hungry now. It's what, 2? Okay, I don't know where they want me to go with this. Oh, come back. I see. Interesting. I don't remember this shrine. I'm sure I did it. I must have. What am I doing? Okay, we got this here. Let's go balloon in the middle. Okay. Oh, okay. I was worried it would break everything. Shit. Food's a good idea. Alright. I'll be here. I may not, I don't know. I may cut it. I wanted to watch that science thing though. So if I don't see you, I'll talk to you later. Go make some shitty food. Big hole. Little hole. I want the big hole. Where is that? Or, fuck, I may have had to bring it from the other side. Oh well, I don't really care. Okay, alright, I'm gonna cut it there. I will be back later. Food time. If you were watching, I appreciate it.